Working for a residential property management company may sound glamorous. It's a decent living, but most tenants can drive you crazy, especially at Martin Place. About half of them pay rent late, if they even pay at all. Handling court eviction paperwork takes up most of my time. Whenever I'm not evicting someone, I'm doing minor repairs around the apartment complex. No one else in the office will do that, so I'm stuck with it. I can honestly say I've never had a tenant I liked there. Except for Doug Albertson, he was decent, at first anyway. But in the end, he was the most disturbing person I've ever met. Doug moved into apartment 6. He seemed normal, mid-40s, no kids, worked from home. Behavioral modification, he said. I meet with people via video chat to help them break bad habits. Smoking, swearing, nail-biting, whatever you name, I can fix it. Groceries were delivered to his home, and he only took out the trash at night. Quiet, yet reclusive. The guy never called for any maintenance. Most of the contact I had with him about the apartment was the day I showed him the place. Occasionally, you'd run into him in the hallway, but that was it. The rest of the apartment building was chaotic. Endless parties, drunks stumbling through the hallways, and drugged-out junkies passed out on the stairs. Most of those misfits were guests of Toby Hansen in apartment 7. That guy was always stirring up trouble. I was walking down the stairs on a cold afternoon when I had one of the rare chances to see Doug. He was walking up the steps with his mail. We waved and muttered greetings as we passed. "Excuse me," Doug called out from the top of the stairs. "Could I have a word with you?" "Sure," I replied. "What do you need, Doug?" He smiled nervously and shuffled his feet. You could tell he was uncomfortable. I checked my watch, signaling for him to hurry the hell up so we could both get on with our day. "The gentleman in apartment 7 keeps partying late," he said politely. "It's very loud. Do you think you could talk to him for me?" "Sorry, Doug," I replied. "I've talked to Toby Hansen dozens of times, asking him to tone it down. The guy just ignores me. I can't evict him because he's punctual with his rent. Your best bet is to call the cops and file a noise complaint. If he racks up enough fines, maybe he'll shut up." "I'd rather avoid involving the police," he said dryly. "Perhaps I can help him modify his behavior. Thanks for your help." We said goodbye and went on our way. That was the last complaint I ever got about Toby Hansen. Suddenly he became a model tenant. His rent was always paid on time. I guessed he might have gotten a job because he was never home when I was in the building. All his shady friends disappeared. The parties stopped. It didn't solve the misery caused by the other 10 tenants, but it went a long way toward quieting the place. Over the next few months, strangely, the apartment building grew much quieter. The couple in apartment 3 stopped their constant fighting and yelling. As far as I could remember, you could always hear them shouting at each other whenever you were near the building, smashing dishes, throwing clothes out the window, and arguing in the hallway. One day, they were just silent. I'd get maintenance requests from them every month or two, and I'd do the work while they were out. Other than that, not a peep. I stopped by the apartment building on the 2nd of the month to check the rent drop box and was surprised to see Doug again. He lived on the 2nd floor, but I could swear he was just walking out of apartment 5. Joe Kimbler's place. That guy was a violent drunk with an impressive rap sheet. Didn't seem like Doug's type of company, but who was I to judge? "Good morning, Doug," I called out, waving at him. The building was as quiet as a tomb, a welcome change, if not a bit unnerving. This might be the most peaceful moment I've ever heard. Doug smiled and waved back. "It's all about behavioral modification, my friend," he replied as he started climbing the stairs. "Your suggestion worked wonders. I had a word with Mr. Hansen and the other residents. It seems my skills helped them work through some of their issues. Have a great day." "You too, Doug," I shouted back. He disappeared into his apartment. My job became manageable, even enjoyable. That was until August, when half the rent checks from the building bounced. I called the tenants repeatedly, but none of them answered. Left maybe 36 voicemails, hell, 100 text messages, emails. Nobody checks those damn things anymore. No responses. I was shocked to see Doug's name among the bounced checks. After a few days with no callbacks, I went to the building and started knocking on doors. No one on the first floor answered. They weren't exactly a crowd likely to hold down steady jobs, so I thought a few of them might just be dodging me. I climbed the stairs and knocked on Doug's door. No answer. I tried calling his name a few more times, but still nothing. Just as I was about to head down the stairs and back to my car, I heard a muffled noise from inside. I called his name a few more times, but got no response. Only the muffled sounds persisted. Fear swirled in my head. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out my master key and slid it into the lock. When I pushed the door open, an overwhelming stench hit me. Ammonia and rotting food, maybe. It smelled like a damn kennel. "Doug!" I yelled. "Are you here? Are you okay?" No answer came, except for a muffled noise from his bedroom. Worried he might be hurt, I walked onto the door and opened it. The stench hit me so hard that my eyes began to water. Suddenly the room was filled with muffled groans and sobbing. Along the walls of the bedroom were dog kennels. Inside each cage was one of the tenants from the building. Their ankles and wrists were bound together, filthy rags stuffed in their mouths, and collars strapped around their necks. On the table, in the center of the room, was a piece of paper. I picked it up and read the short note. "I apologize for the bounce checks, my friend. Some things are unavoidable. I won't be coming back, but to thank you for the wonderful accommodations, I've completed my behavioral modification sessions with your tenants. They won't trouble you anymore. Sincerely, Doug." I stared at the note, unable to comprehend what I had just read. My eyes darted between the paper and the cages, disbelief washing over me. The tenants stared back at me, their eyes wide with desperation and fear, muffled cries begging for help. My stomach churned, and I felt the bile rising in my throat. Whatever Doug had done to these people, it was horrifyingly effective. The quiet, the peace, it had all been a grotesque facade. I immediately called the police. When they arrived, the scene left them as stunned as I was. The tenants were freed, and paramedics were called to check on their conditions. Thankfully, they were malnourished but alive. Doug, however, was nowhere to be found. The police searched the apartment thoroughly, but he had vanished without a trace. His phone, his laptop, everything was gone. The only clue he left behind was that chilling note. Over the following weeks, the tenants slowly moved out, unable to continue living in a place that held such horrifying memories. The building fell into even greater disrepair, and I eventually left the management company. I still think about Doug Albertson sometimes. About his unnerving politeness, his quiet demeanor, and the calm way he spoke about behavioral modification. Most of all, I think about the tenants in those cages, the terror in their eyes. Doug fixed their issues all right. But at what cost? Wherever he is now, I hope I never meet him again.